Welcome to this latest edition in our video interview series here at iConnect. My name is Richard Albert, and along with Tom Ginsberg and David Landau, I'm a founding co-editor of this blog. And today, in our series on 5 questions, we're going to feature Julie Suk. Julie Suk is professor of sociology and political science at the City University of New York, where she's also dean of the graduate master's program. Julie will also be a visiting professor of law at the Yale Law School this fall. Julie, thank you for agreeing to answer these questions in our series on 5 questions here at iConnect.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, let's get started, Julie. As you know, the purpose of this series is for our viewers and readers to get to know a bit more about you and your work. So let's just dive right in. First question, what are you working on right now?
Well, just today, I've put to bed my book, which is forthcoming in August. So final proofs, final book jacket proofs for We the Women, the Unstoppable Mothers of the Equal Rights Amendment. And I will show you what that looks like, provided I could get the technology to work. There we go. So that is the book. You can pre-order it now on Amazon or Bookshop or wherever you get books. And I'm very excited that the book is coming out in August, which is the month of the centennial of the 19th Amendment. The book begins with the 19th Amendment, but really goes into the history of the ERA, which was launched or introduced in Congress right after the 19th Amendment was ratified. And tells the 100-year legislative history of the battle for the Equal Rights Amendment, which has come back to the political hopper because 3 states have more recently tried to ratify it long after the expiration of a ratification deadline set by Congress. So I think the battle will continue in the courts and in the political arena for some years to come. This book really focuses on the women who made the ERA. And so I finished putting it to bed today. And then after taking a breather, participating in some seminars and lectures that you organized, Richard, which have been absolutely wonderful. I'm actually working on my next project, which is looking at the feminist legal prehistory of the Prohibition Amendment. So, so that's what I'm currently beginning to work on.
You've got your hands full, and congratulations on the book. It's a striking cover. It really, really is. Congratulations, Julie. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So, Julie, you have this book that you've just completed. You're starting a new project. I'm sure you have other smaller writings that you're involved in. How do you write? When do you write? Do you have a schedule that you keep every day? Do you just write whenever the time appears magically out of nowhere? What's your routine for writing?
So I have various different routines at different points in life. So since the pandemic began, my schedule of travel and commuting to my office has grinded to a halt. So, but it does mean that I've cut out the commuting and travel time, so I do have more time at home to write. I mean, I'm also home with kids who aren't in school. And so it's been a little bit less predictable when I'll have those moments because the kids, I mean, I guess they are in school because they learn virtually, but they often need both IT and tutoring assistance with their work. Also some policing to get off the video games and the internet. So in between all those things, I try to write. I mean, normally when I'm really working on a serious project that's on deadline, working on a book, I tend to try to wake up really early before anyone else is awake, maybe 4 or 5 in the morning. And I try to get at least 2 hours in before other people are awake, both in my household and in the neighborhood. With the project, I mean, with the ERA project, when I was doing a lot of the research and writing with sources, I really enjoyed going to the New York Public Library, the Wertheim study there, because there you could just have access to all the research collections, but all the books will just stay on your designated shelf, the books that don't circulate, or the things that are too fragile to circulate, even if you have circulating privileges at the New York Public Library, which I do. So That's a space that I used to go to a lot, particularly as I started the Prohibition Project, because there were a lot of old sources I was looking at there.
Hmm. So Julie, I'd like to ask you, when you knew this was the life that you wanted, the life of a scholar, when did you know you wanted to be a law professor? You went to Harvard College, I believe. You earned a degree at Oxford as a Marshall Scholar. Then you earned your JD at the Yale Law School, where in fact we met as classmates. When
Yes.
did you know that this is the life that you wanted to build for yourself, the life of a scholar?
So I think that I just stayed with what I loved as a student. So the next thing to do after I was an undergrad studying English and French literature and also some political philosophy was to go to graduate school because I wanted to keep reading the history of political thought and intellectual history, which was very much where my mind was, both as a literary person and as a political theory person. And then as I was doing my DPhil at Oxford, I was reading a lot about political philosophy. And there I realized how important it was to study both the sociology and reality of law. And that's what led me to Yale Law School. So I think during all this time, though, I was always writing and doing research, and it's almost like it's in my bones, and I couldn't really imagine doing anything else.
Well, we're glad you made that choice to become a professor, a scholar of the law. Can we stay with your time as a student? I'd like to ask you, was there a book you read at the time, or a paper you encountered, a chapter in a volume that you read at the time that today continues to be important to you, meaningful to you in the way that you approach the law, the way you write your scholarship, in some meaningful way to you?
So I think there was one book that I was reading when I was in graduate school, and it was Avishai Margalit's book, The Decent Society, in which he talks about the importance of, well, to some degree, human dignity, and his take on what it means to live in a good society is not necessarily just measured by liberal understandings of justice, but the extent to which a society is decent by not humiliating people. And so that was actually a very interesting insight. And I was reading about and writing about the concept of human dignity and what it means to suffer a dignitary harm, particularly in the context of race and gender inequality, which is what I write about now. And then when I was in law school, kind of carrying on these themes, but more grounded in a historical and institutional context, was Jim Whitman's book, Harsh Justice, which is also about the way in which criminal justice systems comparatively conceptualize an understanding of equality through dignity norms or not.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those two references. Julie, I know you're very busy. Let me just ask you one more question. Of all the books, all the chapters, all the papers that you have written, is there one that is most dear to you, that your favorite publication, one that's most meaningful to you? I ask because I'd like to share a link to that publication for our readers or viewers to learn more about you and your work.
So there's one piece that I actually really enjoyed doing the research on, and that I wrote, I guess over 10 years ago now. It's called Procedural Path Dependence. And it was published in the Washington University Law Review, I believe in 2008. And this was a project in which I was really looking at the way in which our choices about procedures in enforcing anti-discrimination norms. I was particularly taken with the fact that in France, as in many other European legal systems, criminal law is actually used to enforce the norm against discrimination in many contexts. And not just of course, we think about criminal law, the intersection of criminal law and anti-discrimination law in the context of hate crimes and violence. But actually, this notion that you could have corporate criminal liability, for example, for workplace discrimination. I was really fascinated by that idea. So it's something that I explored. And my exploration really took me to the extent to which differences in criminal and civil procedure comparatively between the United States and continental European legal systems really made criminal law advantageous in terms of forcing the information sharing that we typically get through our rules of civil procedure. And that's something that's a piece that I really enjoy because it brought together my interests both in constitutional norms like anti-discrimination on the one hand, and then the nitty-gritty of procedure and legal systems and how they actually work on the ground.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm going to have to look at that paper, and I'll be happy to link that paper in the blog post that we published that features you in this 5 questions series. Julie Suk, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Author of the forthcoming We the Women, the Unstoppable Mothers of the Equal Rights Amendment. Thanks for agreeing to do this, and great luck and to you and your family. Please stay healthy and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Richard. Great to be here with you.